Yes, this is me again, Marjoy PINGKI YONSON, your discussant for today. How are you all? I hope you are doing well. Today's topic is so much interesting, so I encourage everyone to tune in and engage with today's topic. We'll be discussing something that could broaden your horizons by watching this video from start to finish. And if you're an aspiring teacher, you won't want to miss it. Please listen carefully and jot down notes so you can get the most out of this video. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we dig into the main topic, allow me to present to you our learning objectives for today. At the end of the discussion, students will be able to distinguish what is performance-based assessment and its essential features. Second is to value the benefits, advantages, and usage of performance-based assessment in the lessons. Third is to create steps on how can educators utilize performance-based assessments for their students. Today, I'll be discussing about performance-based assessment. A student's knowledge can be tested in a variety of ways. Multiple choice exams and short response questions work well for some people. These methods, however, may cause test anxiety and fail to demonstrate how a student solves a problem. So as a result, performance-based assessments may be able to provide more insight into how much a student understands. Today, we'll distinguish what is performance-based assessment, what are the essential features or components of performance-based assessments, what are the benefits and advantages of performance-based assessment, how would performance-based assessments be used in the lessons, and how can educators create performance-based assessments for their students, or what are some steps in order to do so? Let's start with what is performance-based assessment. The definition of performance-based assessments varies greatly depending on author, disciple, publications, and intended audience. But in general, a performance-based assessment measures students' ability to apply the skills and knowledge learned from a unit or units of study. Typically, the task challenges students to use their higher order thinking skills or HOTS to create a product or complete a process, and that is according to Chun of 2010. Performance-based learning and performance-based assessments are methods of learning and appraising students based on how they carry out specific tasks or activities, as opposed to more traditional test formats. The more genuine assessments require students to complete a task that closely mirrors the responsibilities of a professional. That includes artists, engineers, laboratory technicians, financial analysts, and even consumer advocate. Serving as an alternative to traditional testing methods, we can infer that performance-based assessments includes the problem-solving process. These assessments require students to create a product or answer a question that will activate the student's thoughts or higher order thinking skills. And it demonstrates or it showcases the student's skills and understanding. Performance-based assessments require students to actively participate in a task to assess their process. And the questions or tasks are designed to be practical and interdisciplinary. As opposed to more traditional test formats or test assessments, this approach allows students to demonstrate their knowledge and how they would apply it to real-world scenarios. So that is performance-based assessments. Now, what are the essential features or components of performance-based assessments? Although performance-based assessments vary, the majority of them share key characteristics. First and foremost, the assessment accurately measures one or more specific core standards. It is complex depending on subject matter and goals, and there are different ways to facilitate performance-based assessments. Yet, there are certain elements that make performance-based assessments. Performance-based assessments meet these criteria. First, it is complex. An assessment is considered complex when an assessment rule sets include calculations and data comparison. We should take note that performance-based assessments prompt students to use higher-order thinking skills such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. The more opportunities students are given to practice these skills, the more proficient they become at using them. So, performance-based assessments should be complex. Second, authentic. Authentic is the idea of using creative learning experience to test student skills and knowledge in realistic situations. Another one is it is process or product oriented. The process oriented approach evaluates how a skill is performed. Again, it evaluates how a skill is performed, whereas the product-oriented approach evaluates the outcome of the skill performance, the outcome of the students. Next one, we have open-ended. Open-ended questions are those that provide students with a question prompt and provide them a space in which enable them to use their HOTS or their higher order thinking skills to construct their own response. Whereas closed-ended questions alternatively provide a question prompt and ask students to choose from a list of possible responses. So, that's not meet the criteria of performance-based assessment. So, it must be open-ended, not closed-ended. Lastly, it is time-bound. A time-bound goal or task is one that is measured or limited by time. This means that while students are given the freedom to demonstrate their skills and understanding in performance-based assessments, they are still time-bound with only a certain amount of time to do so. So by this manner, performance-based assessments can have several different right answers because the tasks and tests are open-ended. Like most real-world situations, they are bound by time and consist of level of complexity such that problem-solving skills are really tested. And again, the key feature of a performance-based assessment is that it requires students to produce an end result. This could be a report, a performance, or an experiment. And this is then scored against a set of criteria. So the overall idea of performance-based learning is that it closely mirrors real-life scenarios and how a professional in that area would tackle the problem. This could mean encouraging children to design and carry out an experiment or choreograph and perform a dance routine, just like a real scientist or a dancer. Now, what are the advantages of performance-based assessment? Performance-based assessment is advantageous for both teachers and students. Not only do performance-based assessments provide deeper insights into how well students have learned, they also give them insight into what they understand themselves. With this knowledge, teachers are better able to understand where a student needs extra assistance and can modify their learning or their lessons accordingly. While it may require a little bit more outside the box thinking than traditional assessments from both teachers and children or students, performance-based assessments have countless benefits. One of which is that for students, it helps to apply in class learning to situations outside of the classroom. And for teachers, it offers deeper insight into the learning needs of students. At the same time, they offer a way to students to better measure their own understanding and success. And while also completing a task or project, a student can see where they are struggling. Then they can ask specific questions or work harder on enhancing their knowledge. And if it's used well, they can really bring out the best in the class. So here are a couple of favorite reasons to use performance-based assessments and learning. First one, they are more engaging. It is no secret that children don't like tests, but with performance-based tests, the whole assessment process can still be fun and engaging experience. And this is a great way to encourage our students to give their all to a task. Second, they encourage students to take ownership of their learning. Students will get the chance to work on a project or performance from its conception until the very end, over the course of many weeks. This will help to keep them enthusiastic and give them an amazing sense of pride at the end. Another one, it stops things from being just a memory test. Some traditional exams and assessments have become a test of children's ability to remember facts, figures, and terms. While this can be important, testing children's or students' memory in this way might not be the fairest method. Another one is that it uses real world examples. For example, in science class, students can be encouraged to think like a scientist, while in art, children or students can think like an artist who has been asked to put on exhibition. So this might even help students to think about future careers. So it uses real world examples. Another one, it develops problem solving skills. In performance based learning, there is often no right or wrong answer. Students are encouraged to think of the different ways they can tackle a problem and work out which one will work best for them. So you see, these are just some of the benefits of utilizing performance-based assessment. Now, how would performance-based assessment be used in the lessons? The most obvious examples of performance-based learning and assessment come in lessons that are naturally more practical in nature and so require less traditional or theoretical assessment. This includes physical education, music, and drama. However, performance-based assessments can be applied to almost any lesson and any objective. For example, students could be asked to design and carry out an experiment in science, write and perform a poem in English, or create a series of themed paintings in art. So in general, these assessments can take many forms. So here are some common examples of performance-based tests that you can use with your own students. We have presentations, group or solo projects, portfolios, debates, performances, and even exhibits or fairs. How can educators create a performance-based assessments for their students? What are some steps? If you are a teacher or facilitator designing performance-based assessments, here's an easy step-by-step guide for doing so. First, you have to identify goals. The first step is designing a test that will challenge a student's problem-solving and critical thinking abilities. The teacher will want the students to work without direct aid so that they can evaluate where a student's strengths and weaknesses reside. Second is to know the core standards. Most schools and districts have core standards that must be taught within the school year. Take the goal identified above and relate it back to a common core standard. Third is to review assessment. As a teacher, you have to look at how students are currently understanding the core standard. This may be from previous test results or even the present or the new test results. Fourth is to address learning gaps. By reviewing assessments, it becomes clear where a student is lacking understanding. So you can design a performance-based assessment that addresses the learning gap in practice. Fifth is to design a scenario. Design a situation that addresses core standards and main ideas that students may be struggling with. You can design a scenario by defining key characteristics including setting, role, time frame, product, and audience. Lastly is to develop a plan. As a teacher, you'll have to balance both content and task preparation. Depending on a student's needs, you may have to be more or less hands-on describing the problem at hand. I have here some guide to performance-based testing. So as we have learned a while ago, performance-based learning relies on the acquisition of skills and development of work habits. Together, these are paired to be applied to real-world situations. First guide is to balance in literacy. In performance-based assessment, rather than asking a student solely if they know something, you may also question how they can use their knowledge. This balances the two to provide the ability to recall knowledge and then classify it for practical usage. Second, content knowledge. It's up to the teacher, it's up to you to pull subject matter directly from the curriculum or to pull ideas from the school or department itself. Third, work habits. For success in performance-based assessment and overall life, students must master skills like time management, interpersonal communication, and individual responsibility. Fourth, performance tasks. Tasks are designed to pull everything together. These tasks take work habits, content knowledge, and balance in literacy to create. They become ingrained as a part of learning rather than an after effect. So an example of performance-based assessment are the following. In theory, performance-based assessments makes a lot of sense. But how can we incorporate it into our teaching? Here are some examples of performance-based testing. In elementary school, you can pose a question like, should our school upgrade our water fountain systems? Now, that's a pretty open-ended question with no single correct answer. One way to make it practical is to ask students to record how many kids are using the water fountain per hour. In this way, they can determine need and learn about decision making. In middle school, you can create a scenario in which someone commits a crime. Then, you can run a mock trial in your classroom, as this can test a student's communication skills and reasoning. Now, my question is, can you think of another example? You can comment down below your responses to this question. And why do you think it is a good example in incorporating performance-based assessment in classroom? Anyways, allow me to present to you the bottom line of this report. Education and learning are as diverse as the student's population. The best type of education is one that becomes applicable to real-world situations. Students may have standard tests, but they also get to apply their knowledge to solving complex problems. In the setting of primary to secondary education, performance-based assessments can play the same crucial role. Instead of relying solely on tests that tend to be multiple choice and fail to show how a student arrives at their answer, performance-based assessments offers deeper insight into their thinking process. And the best way to implement performance-based assessment is to first have a general understanding of your students' abilities and areas in which they need improvement. Then you can creatively design a scenario that puts them to the test. So that would be all for now. Thank you for listening. God bless us all.